Welcome back to Fireside Giants. My name's Alex Wilson, and here we got Anthony Rivardo as my co-host. Today, breaking down Giants vs. Bucks. Quite the interesting game we're going to have to talk about today. Obviously, the trade deadline ended November 3rd, 4 p.m. A lot going on today with the election and everything, so it was not as eventful as we would have hoped for. But nonetheless, there's a lot to talk about, whether it's ranging from Daniel Jones to the play calling, to the bad referees, to the lack of moves at the deadline, no Golden Tate trades, or it was Kevin Zeitler, Golden Tate's wife going crazy on Instagram. There's a lot to break down from the last 10 hours or so. But just to get started, Anthony, how you doing, my friend?
You know, I'm sad and disappointed like everybody else after this terrible loss that we suffered. And more than anything, I'm discouraged and disappointed because of Daniel Jones. And we got to talk about it because, you know, we did the pregame show, the live stream. We had a lot of people come out, and thank you all for tuning into that. And that was a lot of fun, and we were talking about Daniel Jones and how we really thought that he's improved a lot this year, and how last week in particular, he had one of his best games of his career so far against Philadelphia. And then he followed that up with last night basically being the biggest problem on the field for the Giants. I really do think if you have to pin this loss on one person, it's got to be Daniel Jones. He held the offense back. And it's funny because during the pregame show, we were saying Daniel Jones has been carrying this offense the past few weeks. Last night, he really held the entire offense back. So, you know, it's really disappointing because you want to see week-to-week progression from the quarterback, and we think that we've seen some progression. And then to see him just take such a large step back and really regress like that is so concerning and so demoralizing. That was really a winnable game. The Giants were in it all the way till the end, and they really should have won that game. They had multiple opportunities to seal it, and of course Daniel Jones just couldn't connect on any of those deep balls, and it was pretty bad. So, you know, I'll let you give your take on that, but this is probably going to be the bulk of the discussion for the episode is Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I mean, the guy just is polarizing in so many ways, right? On one week where, like, he can do it, he is a franchise caliber quarterback, he can make the throws, make the plays, his awareness is getting better, and then the next week, he completely takes 10 steps backward, you know? They deserved to win that game against the Buccaneers on Monday night. They truthfully deserved to win that game. The defense played out of their minds. The offense played well enough. Jason Garrett's play calling, by the way, stellar. Except for that one third and 11 or third and 10 like running back screen in the red zone. That was the only play. Exactly. That was the only play where I said to myself, that wasn't a good idea. He just settled for the field goal. But for the most part, he was in the zone, man. He was calling the right plays at the right time, getting creative, imaginative, and he was utilizing his playmakers. We saw Sterling Shepard get involved, Evan Ingram get involved, Darius Slayton was involved. Now, the Giants could have blown the Buccaneers out of this game. And you obviously know what I'm referring to because Daniel Jones missed about 4 passes. One of them was actually just a bad read. And if you recall, I'm going to hit on one of them. He ends up throwing an interception on this pass. This is his first interception of the game. I think it was his first one. He throws this to, I think, Golden Tate or Shepard on the right side of the field.
Shepard on the right side, yeah.
Shepard on the right side. And his first progression is Darius Slayton, right? His first progression is Slayton. He looks at him for about half a second and moves on very, very quickly. This is where the polarizing portion of this comes in because on one side of things, we've been on his case for sticking to his first read too long. And now he's moving on from it too fast. And it's kind of bad because you could see the defense shifting to the right side of the field, and Darius Slayton just completely puts this double move on the cornerback. He just moves right by him. You know, he's right by him into the secondary. There's nobody within maybe 20 yards of him. If Daniel Jones gets this throw off, he ends up throwing an interception, running to the right side, throwing on the move, off balance, and gets picked. Those are the type of plays that franchise quarterbacks make. You know, that is what separates a great from a good quarterback. And that happened multiple times. We obviously saw the Sterling Shepard one that most people thought he could have been running faster. He shouldn't have turned his head so quickly. Ended up slowing down. I think that was partially on Shepard as well. But there was another 2 throws that Jones just sailed out of bounds early on in the game. And now it's important to factor in the wind here because the wind was really, really bad in the first half. But again, the ball was so far out of bounds. I can't even justify the wind, you know, being a main factor. Just throw it toward the middle of the field and let Darius Slayton run after it. Just let him just at least put it downfield and let your receiver have a chance. He threw it directly out of bounds. That is where I'm looking at Daniel Jones right now and saying, what the hell happened? Because we've seen him make those throws time and time again. We've seen him make those throws downfield, and you just can't have bad games in the NFL, right? You can't just disappear at times. And he had a great throw to Golden Tate late on. That the tying touchdown, not the tying one, but they didn't get the 2-point conversion. That's a whole other story with the bad call. But that throw to Golden Tate was absolutely gorgeous, right? Gorgeous.
Okay, that throw, and here's the thing, right? 4 throws in the game that we can think of off the top of our heads where Jones should have connected and didn't, right? He failed, whether it was because he misread the coverage or because he panicked under pressure or because he just was so inaccurate that it wasn't catchable, right? So we can think of all these different reasons why those throws didn't connect. And then we see in the red zone, Golden Tate running a seam route against a cover 4. That should not be open. But if he gets behind that cornerback and the throw is literally perfect and he lasers it in there, it'll be a touchdown, and it is. And that's just like, it makes me so frustrated and blows my mind to think he can just miss on these easy throws downfield, like just miss wide open deep throws, and then fire this laser hole shot to Tate in the back of the end zone with perfection. Like, how do you go from there to there, and then on the next play, that 2-point conversion, just to go 10 steps backwards? Like, okay, he goes from playing terrible, 10 steps forwards on that laser into the end zone, then 20 steps backwards by holding onto the ball for an additional 2 seconds on the 2-point conversion. That's a catch and a throw, and it's a 2-point conversion. He just holds on to it and throws it, and not even that. The placement on it was bad. He threw
great play call too.
He threw it inside. It needed to be outside, and it was a good play call. And another thing to that, he hesitated, right? The play call was to throw it to Dion Lewis, but if you notice on the left side of the field, he had on the mesh route underneath, he had Sterling Shepard. So if he hesitated on that, he knows if the coverage isn't there, boom, wide open over the middle is Sterling Shepard. That's how that works, because if one read isn't open, the second one should be. So if he wanted to hesitate on that, that's fine. Throw the second route. Don't hesitate and then throw the route that you just hesitated on and stare down for every cornerback and every defensive back to see you stare down. Like, and we could talk about, was that a defensive pass interference? Okay, but the thing is, there shouldn't have even been a chance to have that call because the ball should have come out instantly and it should have been a 2-point conversion.
Right.
So
right. No, I mean you're making a lot of good points here, and I think that was one of Jones's worst games of his career by a large margin. That drive, that fourth quarter drive. Yeah, I mean the fourth quarter drive that he led to score that touchdown to Golden Tate at the end was a mess. A mess. That drive should have stopped way before. If you remember, he basically runs
pick.
Not only that, 4th and 5. He's running backwards, just literally lofts a ball up that Darius Slayton catches, and somehow gets a first down. Like,
that was a hell of a play by Slayton, man.
His playmakers did everything they could to bail Daniel Jones out of this game. Everything. And he still couldn't do them any. Like, Darius Slayton and Sterling Shepard were running unbelievable routes, like completely torching the Buccaneers defenders, and they have one of the best defenses in the NFL. We saw what Sterling Shepard means to this defense, by the way. Him coming back, against Tampa, you see what he is capable of doing. He really opens up an opposing defense. Getting a number 1 guy in there and putting Sterling Shepard in the slot, I don't even want to know what this offense would be capable of. Jason Garrett taught me one thing last night, and it's that this offense is going to be good as long as Daniel Jones is good. They don't even have Saquon Barkley. They had Alfred freaking Morris running the ball over Wayne Gallman. So,
and you know what? Gallman played great. I want to give credit to him. And I want to say, you said as long as Daniel Jones is good. And I'm just going to throw as long as the quarterback is good. Because I'm not sure that it's going to be Daniel Jones next year. After this performance, I feel like this is the one that a lot of people are going to point to in the offseason. We'll see where it goes from here, these final 7 weeks, right? Or these final 8 weeks plus a bye, 7 games. I feel like this is the one that a lot of fans are going to point to, come the end of the season. They're going to say, okay, but remember week 8 versus Tampa Bay, how he just completely held us back? And it's going to be a fair arguing point. Like, that's going to be a fair counterpoint when someone brings up the good in Daniel Jones. You bring up this game, and it was just a perfect display of all of the bad and ugly of Daniel Jones. all mixed into one game. Whether it
Right.
was, like that dropped interception on the final drive, that was him locking into the first read and firing it in there, and he didn't move on to a second read.
Mm-hmm.
There was other plays where he threw to the first read. I know Golden Tate's crying on Instagram or his wife is,
Rightfully so.
she's frustrated on Instagram.
He was
There
wide
is
open.
a specific play. There's a specific play I remember in the fourth quarter where he ran a deep hook route right to the sticks, and Jones just never looked at him.
I
He
remember
was
it.
wide open.
I
There
remember
was
that.
nobody covering him. It was an easy first down, and maybe then some, because he can.
I think it was a
He's
third
the
and
Yak
10
King
too,
or whatever.
something.
And then he throws he throws directly to Engram on like a 5-yard out route, and they pick up like 6 yards.
And then
he
that
had,
was
like,
the
an easy
Darius
first
Slayton
down.
catch right after that.
Yeah, that was the very next play. So it could have been a first down. Instead, it was 4th and 5, and he had to panic, and his playmaker bailed him out.
Mm-hmm.
And, he didn't get on the move a whole lot last night. He really didn't show that
Yep.
off. I think that's really his
That was
only
Tampa,
elite
though.
trait is his athleticism.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Tampa
I
did
think
really
Tampa.
well.
Okay, Tampa was definitely ready for it and they schemed for it, but there were
Devin
a
White
few
was
times,
spying on him a lot.
There were a few times where the Giants ran some inside zone, and if that was zone read, and because I can't tell,
Didn't
I
take
don't
enough. He
know
did it
whether
one
or not it
time.
was an option, but had he just taken a few of those, there were lanes for him. He had opportunities to take off with them, and I don't know if he was
Yeah.
allowed to on the play call, right? Because if it's a zone read, he can, but if it's an inside zone, he can't. But if it was a zone read and he didn't take a few of those, then that's just confusing because, that's just him not being able to read the defense, I guess, because he had a few like lanes, like wide open running lanes that he didn't take, instead handed the ball off. So I don't know. You can give credit to Tampa's defense for keying in on that, but also I feel like Jones definitely made the wrong read
He
on a couple of
definitely,
those zone reads on those read options.
Right, and that's the argument that's going to happen. If he continues to struggle, if he doesn't put his game together and get rid of those awareness issues, get rid of the turnover issues, and get rid of those deep ball inaccuracy problems, we're going to be talking about Justin Fields, Zach Wilson. I don't think Trevor Lawrence is in our wheelhouse anymore because the Jets seem to be tanking
Trey
for
Lance.
him, literally.
I know
Trey
Mike
Lance,
Too Nice is a big Trey Lance fan.
Yeah.
He's chatted
look,
with him about that.
You take a guy like any three of those guys. I actually like Zach Wilson a lot, and I do like Justin Fields. But you look at these guys, any of them really, and you say they can do all the things that Daniel Jones can do, right? They can run the ball, they can throw the ball well. Now, all you need to do is add the factor of can you hit the deep ball, because that was really, 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 really bad what we saw against Tampa. I don't really know what to think about him anymore. I've been very, very optimistic on his play. I've been back, I had his back on multiple occasions. But after a performance like that, I have to second guess myself. I have to take a step back and say, there are clear-cut issues here. Was it a confidence thing? Was it a wind thing? I don't know. What is he just simply missing throws? Was it a wide receiver thing? Not enough chemistry on the time of these balls? I have no idea. There could be a multitude of factors, but the reality is at a professional level, and you're expecting this player to be your franchise quarterback, you can't do that. You can't do it. And the reporters asked Joe Judge today, do you see Daniel Jones as your quarterback? Are you guys gonna bench him for Colt McCoy? And he was like, no, we're not doing that. Like he basically gave them the stink eye and was like, I can't believe you just asked that question. Really, we're going to give Colt McCoy reps. He's not the future of this organization. Daniel Jones, we want him to be. But here's the reality is that if Dave Gettleman stays, Daniel Jones is the future. If Dave Gettleman leaves, Daniel Jones is no longer the future. That is how I feel about the future of the Giants. And I'm okay with moving on from Daniel Jones if they feel that that's the right thing to do for one reason. They can go out and sign a guy like Kenny Galladay, a guy like Allen Robinson in free agency, add a number one receiver. They have Sterling, they have Darius Slayton, have Evan Ingram, have Saquon. We're going to talk about the offensive line shortly. That unit, with Jason Garrett's play calling against Tampa, can be very good. They just need the right quarterback to fit their system. And a new GM will come in here and make that change. That he'll want to build that way. But, it's really hard for me right now to say I'm confident in Daniel Jones. I think that he's got to show just insane improvement over the next 7-8 weeks. Otherwise, I'm going to have to say we have to move on from him.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to say that I'm confident in him, but at this point, it's kind of hard to be confident after last night's game. Like, my confidence is shaken. I was confident after last week's performance. I thought that was I was really impressed with that. I thought he came of age against the Philadelphia Eagles, and I thought that he really played well. He put the team in position to win, and he made the throws at the end of the game when he needed to win the game, and they were dropped or whatever, right? But then this game, he didn't make those throws. The throws that we saw him make last week, he didn't connect on this week. And you know what, though? It's kind of like towards the beginning of the season, we were saying we felt like Jason Garrett was holding back Daniel Jones, right? And it's kind of interesting because now Jason Garrett, we're singing his praises because week to week the offense has just gotten better, and especially these last couple of games, the offense has looked really good. The play calling and situational play calling in particular is like vastly improved, and now it kind of looks like Daniel Jones is holding the offense back. So was that the problem the whole time? That's a scary thought. That is a scary thought. Is Daniel Jones holding back this offense? Or was this just one game? Did he just have a bad game where he held back the offense this one time? But it's kind of hard to say it's one game when he's got, 40-something turnovers and 20 starts,
Yeah, I mean, look, 20 starts, what does he have, 30?
43?
So he doesn't have 44 turnovers. I tweeted out that he had 44 turnovers, but he fumbled 18 times, but he only lost 11 of them. So it's a little bit less.
But we could say that he's got at least 50-something turnover-worthy plays then, because if you're counting in dropped picks and fumbles that were recovered by the Giants, he's probably got over 50 turnover-worthy plays in 20 starts. So that's, that's 2.5. That's 2.5 turnovers a game.
Yeah, and now look, a lot of people are making the comparison to Eli Manning, who also had really bad awareness and turnover problems early on in his career. Fair to mention. Now, what I will say is this: if Daniel Jones gets rid of those deep ball issues, and he usually is good on those passes, so it was a little bit of an anomaly for us to watch him miss so badly on these against Tampa.
But he also doesn't throw them that often. And is this why they don't throw them this often? Is it because has this been a problem in practice? Has he not been?
That was one of his weaknesses,
balls?
by the way.
Right.
Going into the NFL.
Maybe even though we've been saying he can hit the deep balls, why don't we push the ball downfield? Maybe the coaching staff has more information than we do, and which they do, and maybe they recognize throwing the ball downfield is not a strength for him, and his accuracy gets really all over the place, and that's why they haven't been doing it, and we finally saw it on display last night when they opened up the playbook and started pushing the ball downfield. That's definitely a possibility here.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of factors, but the point you mentioned before really, really interested me. Was it not Jason Garrett and was it Daniel Jones that was actually holding his offense back? I think it was a mixture. Because, we did see Daniel Jones stare down his first targets. That's why they lost the Browns. Who was it? Who picked him off when he was trying to throw to Damian Ratley? Was it the Bears? No. The game after that?
I don't remember that play that you're speaking
Remember, he's rolling out to the right. He throws an interception. Damian Ratley is the target there, and the game ends right there because of it. I forget who it was against.
The Rams. That was against the Rams.
It was against the Rams.
Okay, and that play, that was a product of him, because I did the film breakdown for that game. That was him staring one route down, and he hesitated, kind of like he did on that 2-point conversion, right? Where if the ball comes out on time, it's a first down. Or on the 2-point conversion, it's a 2-point touchdown. But on that play, if the ball comes out on time and it's at the sideline and it's accurate, it's a first down and they're inside like the 10-yard line. But on that play, he just stood there and he stared it down and he waited, and then he rolls out of the pocket and he threw it late and he threw it behind. So it's almost exactly like that 2-point conversion, except more, it's a longer throw. It's a deeper throw. So
you want to know what I think his biggest weakness is?
They're just problems that have been showing up all year is basically the point I'm making. What?
I think his biggest weakness is natural instincts.
Natural instincts.
And the reason I say that is because the hesitation.
Those are pretty important, aren't they?
No, they're very important. But think about it. A lot of his worst plays happen because he hesitates. He's staring his receiver down. He's not taking the shot when it's there. He's waiting too long for the coverage to develop. And good players with natural instincts make plays happen because they feel it. They feel it and they throw the ball. Like Russell Wilson, you watch Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, even Brady. The second they spot something, they make the throw. They make the play. They don't wait an extra second just to make sure. You can't do that in the NFL because these guys, you got to remember, are some of the most athletic people on the planet. You wait an extra second. That guy's running a 4.4, a 4.5, 40-yard dash. He's there. He's already covering that space. We saw yesterday on that dropped interception, he waited a little bit too long, and against Deion Lewis when Winfield, who isn't the fastest safety in the world, but he still waited that extra second and a half, 2 seconds,
quick,
and
though.
bam, yeah, he looked pretty quick there.
I mean, but the hesitation, you're right, and they call that the quarterback's mental processing, right? The mental processor.
Right. I call it instincts.
It's like a tick too slow for this quarterback in particular. It's a tick too slow for Daniel Jones. And that second or that 2 seconds that goes by when he's too busy processing, he's not quick enough and sharp enough to process, that 2 seconds is like a lifetime in the NFL. In college, you can get away with games. That. But in the NFL, it loses you games because it is like
Is that a developmental thing, though? Is that a developmental thing? Is he just not there yet with his internal clock?
I want to say this. I think any problem is fixable. I don't want to say nothing's fixable, right? Some things are harder to fix than others. Accuracy is the hardest thing to fix. If you're inaccurate, you're likely never going to be accurate.
I don't think he's entirely
But here's my thing.
inaccurate.
No. Well, I'm not talking about him. This point I'm making. Anything is fixable to me. Accuracy is the hardest thing to fix. Lamar Jackson in his first season was the most inaccurate quarterback in the league. He was terrible. Mm-hmm. Second season, by accuracy metrics, he was top 10 to top 5. He was that good. His accuracy took this huge jump. So anything is fixable. But Daniel Jones has been having these problems since he was a freshman in college. That is 6 years. He's been having the same problems. Is that still fixable after 6 years of 4 years of working with David Cutcliffe, 1 year of Pat Shurmur, and we give Pat Shurmur shit because we didn't like his offense, right? But he's a good quarterbacks coach. He's a good offensive coordinator. And Jason Garrett, we also gave him some flack for his first 6 weeks of the season, right? He is a good quarterbacks coach. He used to play in the league, right? 6 years of development with these guys, these coaches, and it hasn't improved. So I don't know if it's fixable at this point. Like I said, anything is fixable. Lamar Jackson fixed his accuracy overnight. Look at Josh Allen. Josh Allen fixed his accuracy overnight. It was terrible for the first couple years of his career. This year he's really stepped it up, and it's gotten a lot better.
Right.
So I'll say anything is fixable, right? Like I've said 5 times now. Daniel Jones can fix these things. But is he going to? I got to say it's not likely if he hasn't already because, I texted you the other day because I was curious. So I went back and I looked at my scouting notes from 2 years ago when Daniel Jones, the pre-draft process. And one of the things I wrote down was that his processing is slow. He locks into receivers and he doesn't get off that first read. And to be a one-read quarterback in college is concerning because look at Mitchell Trubisky. Mitchell Trubisky was such a one-read quarterback, so much so that he never got past that in the NFL, and now he's riding the bench behind Nick Foles. So is Daniel Jones a Trubisky? Is he a one-read quarterback that's going to get benched for some average veteran? I would take him over Trubisky. I feel like most people would, but it's the same vein of argument. It's the same issue that they're having, the one reads and things like that. So in terms of whether or not this is fixable, I do think anything is, but I just think it might be too late to fix this one for Daniel Jones. And if it's not fixed by the end of the season, it's definitely going to be too late going into next season, and it's definitely going to be an indication that he just isn't the guy.
Right. And, that is the big thing. Is he a one-read quarterback? Is he that Mitchell Trubisky? They have a little bit more time to find that out. But like you said, 6 years of the same problems. 6 years of the same problems does not indicate a good probability that he is going to fix them, So I think he has the coaches to get it done. Jerry Shuplinski, Jason Garrett, you have the guys around you, man. Like, you really can't ask for a better group of coaches to help you get out of these funks. A lot of it is just internal. It's just in his brain. I just think he lacks football IQ. Maybe the way to put it. He lacks that football IQ in specific situations. Take a sack, throw the ball away. We saw him throw the ball away at the end, and it's like, man, that was the one time you actually had a guy on the right side. Like,
we
he was
all
open.
cheered so loud when he threw the ball away too. We were all very happy to see him actually do that.
Right, and that's the thing though. He's trying to extend plays too much.
He doesn't know how to throw the ball away. His pocket awareness has always been the biggest problem. But the one read thing has always been kind of the secondary problem, and I feel like it's starting to take over as the primary problem, and that's, it's getting worse, so that's a problem. The fact that it's not progressing is really bad.
And let me point this out. If you take away his running ability, we're talking about replacing him right now. Right? Because that is his saving grace so far.
Okay, I think his saving grace. I think his rushing ability is his only real elite trait because I think it's really rare to have a quarterback who can run 80 yards. Like that's rare.
I agree.
That's elite. Okay, but I don't necessarily think it's his only saving grace because I do think to that missile that he threw against the cover four to
It's
potentially tie the game
yeah.
last night. It's plays like that are his saving grace. When he wows you with one of these throws that
It
you're
doesn't
like,
happen
okay,
that often, though. It doesn't happen that often.
but every time it does, you're like, how many quarterbacks in the league can actually make that throw? Like that throw last night. That's a tough throw. You cannot just plug in any quarterback and expect them to make that throw. That was an
Right.
elite throw. That singular play was elite. The next play was utter garbage, right? And that's the problem, the inconsistency. But you also say that throw on the sideline to Evan Engram last week was kind of an elite throw in the clutch, 3rd and 6, perfect play, and it was dropped, right? And then you can also think to
Yeah.
that shot to Golden Tate last week, the touchdown
Yeah.
pass in early on in the game. That was a perfect throw, deep ball. So
Yeah.
those
I
are
have an
his
argument
saving
against
grace.
that, though.
Those are his saving grace, though. Those throws when he wows you and you're like, that's a perfect throw. And sometimes in the clutch, too, like last night and the week before with Evan Engram and Golden Tate. So those are his real saving grace, is that he makes elite throws. But the problem is the good outweighing the bad in terms of elite throws and in terms of inaccurate deep balls and bad reads. So what's weighing
Well,
here? And
that's
so
the thing.
far,
I don't consider the elite throws as a saving grace for one reason. Because I would rather have a quarterback who does the little things right, sees the reads, makes those easy throws downfield that every quarterback in the NFL should be able to make. I would rather have that quarterback than a guy who's going to make a crazy wow play out of nothing after making 17 errors. Like Tom Brady
that's fair.
doesn't make wow throws very often. He does every little thing perfect, though. He makes the short throws, the intermediate throws. He doesn't miss guys downfield. You know what I mean? He doesn't throw those balls into, not all the time. He does. Don't get me wrong. He's one of the best quarterbacks, arguably the best quarterback of all time. But I would rather have a quarterback who does everything, the little things right, and hits those wide open touchdowns with your guy running 30 yards down the field, rather than hitting in the fourth quarter Golden Tate over cover 4. That's
right.
why I don't think it's a saving grace. I think it's still a weakness because you have to rely on the wow moments to bail him out of the bad, easy ones.
And that's a fair criticism, right? But I'll even take your point a step further that this is what you're saying about Tom Brady and he's the GOAT, because I feel like somebody might counterpoint this in the comments that it's Tom Brady. Of course he does all the little things right. Look at Justin Herbert. He has those wow throws that Daniel Jones has, but he's also far more consistent on the underneath stuff than Jones is week to week. Game or like throw to throw, he's more consistently accurate. And he's
it really is throw
better
to throw,
reads,
not even week to week.
Right, yeah, it is throw to throw.
That's
He's
a problem,
making,
though. That's
he's
a problem.
making better reads, and he's more consistent on those little things while also having those like mind-boggling, amazing, elite throws. Justin Herbert does both. Daniel Jones is too inconsistent in one thing. Actually, he's too inconsistent in both of them, to be honest. If you compare him to a guy like that, it's kind of like I think it's similar to Drew Lock, right? Because Drew Lock, he threw that game-winning touchdown pass this week, and he has these plays where he'll just be rolling right and throw left and throws a dime, and you're like, whoa, is Drew Lock the next Mahomes, right? Because that was like the thing when he was coming out of college. It was like he's not great, but neither was Mahomes coming out, but he does things that Mahomes did in college that translated to his success, right? So that's what you look at in Drew Lock, and that's kind of what you see in Daniel Jones, but not even to the extent that Drew Lock does it. So I don't... Like, what does Daniel Jones have that really proves him, like, as this long-term franchise guy? It's hard to, with the inconsistencies, it's really hard to weed out the bad and take the good. I've been trying to do it, and I've been trying to sell myself this bridge that Daniel Jones is a franchise quarterback, but after last night, and he just missed all those easy plays, the give-me's, he missed the give-me's, and he hit on a couple of the big shots, right? Like the ones you got to work for, but he missed all the gimmies, and that really just makes me ponder. It makes me question, and really just wavers my confidence and belief in this guy.
Right, and before we move on from Daniel Jones and onto the offensive line, which is a very, very big topic we still have to touch on, I will end saying this. I would rather have a quarterback have a bad game, a solo bad game every now and then, than miss throws inconsistently during the game on a weekly basis. Because missing throws, bad reads, everything in between that we've seen from him happening every week, whether it's minor or major, those things adding up, you can't do it every single week. If he has a bad game every now and then, I get it. I understand. We see it from all the best players. Sometimes they just don't have a great week, but when you're doing the little things wrong on a weekly basis, and the only thing bailing you out are these wow plays, these wow moments that's just like heaving a ball up to Darius Slayton that eventually led to that Golden Tate touchdown, that should have never even happened. You know what I mean? That throw shouldn't have even happened. So that's my biggest worry, is that he's not doing everything consistent on a weekly basis. We're seeing these inconsistencies every single week. So I'm pretty worried about that. And if we keep seeing that, we're going to be looking at a quarterback this next draft, and we're going to be looking for a trade partner for Daniel Jones, because right now I just can't say I'm fully committed, but I am still willing to give him time the rest of this year to prove us wrong.
Oh yeah, he's got time to prove us wrong, or prove me right, because I've actually been the guy who's been super supportive and saying that Daniel Jones is the guy. So he's got a chance to prove us wrong and right, depending on where you fall here. He's really got 8 games to really do it. And it's funny, before we move on to the offensive line, if I were to make this video, right, and I would just take the wow throws of Daniel Jones and put them together in a video, you would probably look at just those highlights, just those wow throws, and be like, this kid is special. He makes some crazy even last year, his first game of the year, right, against Tampa, when he rolls left and then bombs it 55 yards to the right to Slayton. Remember that? We all remember how crazy that play was. You take plays like that, the cover 4 shots at Golden Tate last night, the dime to Engram on the sideline. You take those plays and you put them all together, and you probably watch that highlight video and come away thinking the Giants have a really special talent on their hands. But then if I made the other video, the Daniel Jones fumbles video, the Daniel Jones interceptions video, the Daniel Jones missed reads video, which one do you think is going to be longer, and which one do you think is going to, tip the scale more in the argument? That's really what you got to think of. So is the good outweighing the bad? And so far, I don't think the good is outweighing the bad. So that's the problem.
Yeah, that is the problem. Anyway, before we dive into the offensive line, I just want to talk about the trade deadline a little bit. What players didn't get dealt, why not. One guy that did get cut, wide receiver Dante Pettis of the 49ers. Super talented player.
He got cut, really?
He got cut, or he was waived, and the Giants probably have a pretty good shot at landing him if they want to pick him up. I would 100% do it. There's no way
I wouldn't do it.
You wouldn't do it?
No, I've heard some things about his work ethic, and I don't think the Giants need any more locker room distractions like that.
Well, if that's the case, maybe Joe Judge whips him into shape. Who knows? But if Kyle Shanahan can't do it, I can't imagine anyone's going to be able to do it. Anyway, the Giants, as we know, were trying to trade Golden Tate and Kevin Zeitler. Neither ended up going, mainly because Golden Tate's contract is basically a major deterrent. They would have to pay him about $5 million for this year and then consume a deal that the team would have an out next year, and there's a $4.75 million dead cap hit. What do you do there? You're pretty much giving up $10 million for an aging veteran that has not done much this year for half a season, or you keep him and pay him a crap ton of money. Why would any team want that kind of contract? The Giants are going to end up just taking the dead cap hit and cutting him after the season anyway. After the deadline, Zeitler, probably. Man, I was one of the only people saying I do not want to trade Zeitler, and I'm so happy they didn't. A bunch of people said that one of the reasons they couldn't trade him was because on Monday, to actually so here's the concept is if you were going to trade Zeitler after Monday, he wouldn't be able to play for an extra week because it's the new week starts, after Sunday kind of thing. There's some weird there's some weird stuff going on in the rule book
with the
that
contract,
says he
right?
Play. Exactly. So with the contract and the money.
Yeah, but I also want to throw this point out here. I said it to you before we started recording. I think a lot of fans might get a little upset by the team not making a move, and I think a lot of teams are probably going to be upset about their teams not making moves. You have to think that this is the COVID era. This is COVID going on right now this season. So if you trade a player, That's like 2 weeks that they can't even play for that team that they get traded to. 10 days, right? Isn't it 10 days they got to be on the COVID list before they can be activated onto the roster? Or it's at least 3 positive COVID tests. And then what if they actually do test positive, or 3 negative COVID tests? And if they do test positive, then that's 10 days that they can't even participate in anything, right? So if you think about it that way, for a team to trade for Kevin Zeitler and give up a 4th or 3rd round pick, so say he has to wait 2 more weeks, they're really trading for what? Is that 6 weeks of his services? 6 weeks, a 6-week rental? You're going to give up a 4th round pick for a 6-week rental? Nobody's going to do that, you know? So as much as we were excited for this trade deadline and hopeful that the Giants would make some moves, does anybody want to give up a 5th round pick for Golden Tate for 6 weeks? Like, what's the point in that?
I wouldn't do it. If I was a GM, I would laugh at Dave Gettleman. I'd laugh in his face.
Yeah, and like, I would have loved if the Giants were to have moved on from Golden Tate today before the 4 o'clock deadline, but it didn't happen, and I'm not surprised, honestly, just with everything going on with COVID especially.
And look, I've been one of the people to say they have underused Golden Tate significantly. His wife went on a crazy tirade on Instagram saying basically the same thing, that Tate is capable of doing more in this offense. And we saw Daniel Jones miss him on multiple occasions yesterday. He was wide open several times. I do think that they underuse him, and I'd like to see him get more action because he is a good wide receiver when you actually get him into space. Problem is, Daniel Jones just locks onto these first reads. He does not go through these progressions well, and I think he misses a lot of open receivers because of that. It hurts his wide receivers in their production. So then again, you have to think about this. And I actually want to ask you a question because I want to get into the offensive line.
Slayton should have had like 200 yards last night.
That's what I said. I said that. I was like, he should have 200 yards and 3 scores right now. But I actually have a good question for you. Do you think that, the offensive line played pretty much out of their minds yesterday, right? Wow. They played compared to what it was like for the first 7 weeks. They played phenomenal. Do you think that the amount of time he actually had in the pocket, freaked him out? Like he was thinking he was going to get hit, just like 7 weeks of just being hit over and over and over, getting sacked. He thought, I'm not trying to make an excuse, I'm just asking you, do you think that his clock was off because of it?
Do I believe in quarterback paranoia is the question.
Well, we saw it with Eli.
We did see it with Eli towards the end of his career, but that was because he went through 10 years of getting beat up, right?
Yeah, that's also fair.
I'll say this much. Daniel Jones, I believe he was pressured 20 times last night, so I think that the offensive line played better, but I do think that most people are a little overrating how well the offensive line truly played here. Because I'm going to pull up the statistic right now.
I mean,
PFF. See how many times Daniel Jones? Yeah, we've got the premium stats because we're bougie. This is week 7. Let me get to week 8 and find it. 20 pressured dropbacks, which is up from 14 last week. So 20 of his 45 dropbacks, he was pressured. On those pressured dropbacks, he was sacked on 15% of them, which is 3 sacks.
Well, I have a question, though. I have a question before you keep going.
And he threw 2 interceptions, and he had only 1 throwaway. So both of those, and this is to your point, both of those interceptions were caused by pressure. They were because he was under pressure. It wasn't because he had too much time. But I also... Go ahead and speak, and while you do that, I'm going to find out how many of these pressures were attributed to Jones himself, because PFF has that stat as well.
That's what I'm saying, because I was about to say, I feel like Jones stood in the pocket for 5 seconds at some points. He was just standing there trying to find... do they count that as a pressure? Do they count that interception? Because he was in the pocket for so long. Do they count that?
Okay, they count that as a pressure, but they don't.
That's a little ridiculous to me.
But no, because they don't credit that pressure to a singular offensive lineman. They credit it to Daniel Jones himself.
I see. Okay.
Let's see how many pressures he was credited with last night. You're gonna have to throw out some stats here while I find that. Actually, I found it. Okay, we're good. He was credited with 1 pressure. So
I feel like that's a little crazy.
I don't know if I think that we could probably find more than one time where he put himself under pressure. So, and pressures are also a subjective statistic as well. But
he rolls out way too quickly sometimes to the right side. His footwork is bad when he's trying to throw to the left side of the field. He always looks like he's leaning back when he's. You know what I mean? He always looks like he's leaning backward instead of throwing. If you watch Drew Brees throw, he's like a freaking statue, and he slings the ball downfield. He looks like he's always leaning backwards and lofting these balls. and they're inaccurate because of it. It doesn't really make his schematics look very, very odd to me when compared to like watching other really, really talented quarterbacks. But the offensive line, I think at this point in the season, I said this, if you're going to start Shane Lemieux, you might as well just put Matt Parrott in there. I think Matt Parrott had about 24 snaps of the 74.
He played very well last night, in my opinion. I thought
He played very
really well. I thought that Kevin
and
Zeitler
Thomas did too.
I thought Kevin Zeitler improved too. He looked really good last night. Nick Gates had one of his best games of his season. Andrew Thomas, I think, had his best game of the season. And I think Shane Lemieux, considering all things, rookie stepping in, 5th-round pick, I think he played really well also.
Yep. And we're going to break him down, by the way. We have Matt, who is our offensive line connoisseur, and he is going to be teaching us like a class, essentially like a school kind of class. We're going to do it on YouTube. We're going to post it on YouTube. But it's going to be cool. We're going to ask him questions like, what do you see here in this play, and how did Shane react? What is wrong with his technique, and kind of everything in between. So you'll get a really good idea of what we really see from Shane, and if his grade, because I think, what do they give him, a 12 grade? 12.1 or something?
Yeah, PFF? I think PFF gave him a 12.1 pass blocking grade. His run blocking grade was about average. His pass blocking grade was very poor.
So we'll see. We'll see what actually happened.
Jones had an average of 2.6 seconds between
That's
snap
pretty
to
good.
throw. That's not like about average. That doesn't mean he's holding onto the ball too long. If you look at Baker Mayfield had 3.21, and you wonder why he played so poorly. He's holding onto the ball way too effing long. Daniel Jones held onto it about an average amount of time. So maybe he really did only let up one pressure himself. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, maybe it looks from our perspective that the offensive line played a lot better than it usually does.
Yeah, it did.
And I think a lot of that's attributed to how well the running game looked. Because Wayne Gallman looked really good. Even old Alfred Morris, was managing to pick up a couple yards here and there. He had like an 11-yard run at one point. If you put Saquon Barkley back there, I think you're a run-first team. That's kind of what they wanted to do. And you can't be a run-first team when you have Alfred Morris, who literally hasn't played in 3 years, running behind your rookie tackles and rookie left guard. But now my question for you is, what happens with Will Hernandez now? Is he coming back, watching this game and saying, did I just lose my starting position? Did I just lose my starting job? Like, where do you see this going?
No, because I do feel like there's probably some hidden truth to the pass blocking grade by PFF. I feel like once the Giants coaching staff, I feel like they're probably going to be really happy with the way Shane Lemieux played filling in and going to draw a lot of positives. And, he did let up 5 pressures, which is a lot. But I feel like they're going to look at the way he played and think, we do have something here, but we need to develop it further. And they're going to put him back on the bench and just have him continue to develop. That's my prediction of what the Giants are going to assess out of this and do. I don't think that Will Hernandez's job is in jeopardy, despite thinking that it should be. I don't think that it is. So that's just my take on that. But, I guess we'll see, man, because Joe Judge, he's made some surprising moves here and there, like he has, like he benched Andrew Thomas a couple weeks ago, so I wouldn't put it past him to bench Will Hernandez. I just don't actually realistically see him doing it.
Right. You know who was actually just dropped, who the Giants should be 100% going after right now?
I'm ready to hear the
Jonathan
name.
Joseph.
You think they should be going after Jonathan Joseph?
I mean, they just dropped him. The Titans literally just dropped him. He can't be any worse than Isaac Yadam and Ryan Lewis. Like, spare me. He can't be any worse. And he's played all the snaps this year.
I think that's probably true. It can't get worse than what we have at CB2. So yeah, maybe, but I don't know. To me, I'm just gonna sit in this boat. We're 1-7. It's time to just let these young guys continue to develop, even if they're terrible and even if we continue to lose. Jonathan Joseph is old as like rocks, though. He's an old guy.
Yeah, but he's still playing like
old
decent.
Man Joseph.
He's cheap as hell. He's super cheap. He's 36 years old. He's super cheap. You bring him in, see what he's got. Maybe you re-sign him as depth for next year, and then sign another guy. You can't have enough good depth. You know what I mean? You really can't. And at this point, like, you might as well kick the tires if they're going to drop him. The Giants have a waiver wire. Might as well. They're probably going to have a pretty good pick.
Okay, I mean, like, what I'll say is if they do it, I'm not going to be upset about it. I'll be happy about it. I just don't think it's going to be that impactful. But no complaints if they do, if they don't. I'm kind of indifferent to this one.
Okay.
Personally.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of guys, Pettis and Jonathan Joseph. There's a bunch of athletes and decent players that you could take a shot on. But it seems like Joe Judge from his press conference after the game and today that he likes his team. Like, he feels like his team is going somewhere. And by the way, shout out to Patrick Graham for being an absolute freaking stud coordinator. The guy,
yes.
What he did yesterday, what that defense did yesterday with some serious liabilities was borderline a miracle.
He has been phenomenal all season.
Unbelievable.
And I am just super happy that we have Patrick Graham as our defensive coordinator. Super
he might
happy.
be a head coach in a couple of years.
As assistant head coach, which is why I don't think he'll be a head coach anytime soon, because he is the assistant head coach. I think that will keep him around probably a little longer than you would expect any defensive coordinator who is this
if they
good,
start winning,
he has been phenomenal. I mean, yeah, if they start winning, teams are going to be interested, but like I said, I think
I think he might stay because they're winning. I think he'll say, I built this team up. This is my unit, and not a lot of like you said on the live stream. There are some people that don't want to be head coaches.
Yeah.
There are some people. There's some guys like Todd Bowles. He's like, I never want to do that again. Like they just don't want that responsibility. And Patrick Graham is clearly a very, very talented coordinator, and I'm so happy we have him. For as long as we end up keeping him. I'm not sure what his contract looks like, but as long as he's assistant head coach, that's pretty convincing to me that he'll be around for quite a while.
Yeah, I want to throw this out here because I'm very proud of this fact. 14 pass blocking snaps last night for Matt Parrott, 0 pressures. I think that's really solid. He played 24 total snaps compared to Cam Fleming's 52. I wish that they had Matt Parrott on the field more, but on 24 snaps, 14 pass blocking, 0 pressures, and I'm pretty happy about that statistic, and I'd like to see him play more.
Yeah. I mean, look, there's a lot that the Giants still have to do, but we're trending in the right direction. I feel in my heart.
Kevin Zeitler also had 0 pressures too. He played really well.
I know. That's what I'm saying
snaps.
though.
49 pass blocking snaps, 0 pressures. That's pretty nuts.
I was beating the drum. I've been beating the freaking drum that they should not trade Kevin Zeitler. Look, here's the downside of trading Kevin Zeitler. Next year, he counts $14.5 million against the cap, right? $14.5 million. You might be saying, that's so much. Let me ask you a question. How much are the Giants really invested in the offensive line right now? They have 3 rookies playing. Aside from Nate Solder, they have 3 rookies on the offensive line, and Nick Gates is making next to nothing. They can afford to keep him at $14.5 million. That's okay with me. The money is out of the question. That is totally fine. If you get rid of him, you trade him for what, a 4th or 5th round pick, and you draft a guy with this 4th or 5th round pick, there is a 90% chance, probably higher than 90% chance, they will never be as good as Kevin Zeitler.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, that is the key argument. If you get a 3rd round pick, that player is probably never going to be as good as Kevin Zeitler was at one point in his career, right? Like, just probability wise. But I was also, I was on the boat. I was kind of indifferent. I was okay with trading away Kevin Zeitler, but I was more than okay with keeping Kevin Zeitler. And, after seeing the way that the offensive line played last night, and after seeing, the chemistry just seemed better somehow, which is weird because this was a brand new configuration on the offensive line, but it did seem better somehow. So it does make you ponder. Is Will Hernandez, has he been the problem on the offensive line on the left side?
Like, great question.
If he leaves the lineup and everyone around him, like the center and the left tackle, played better, is he has to have some responsibility in that. There's got to be something to that. Like, I'm not saying correlation equals causation, because post hoc ergo propter hoc is the fallacy there, but there's definitely got to be something to that, right?
I'll say this. I think that Parrott was the difference maker for Zeitler, because Parrott looked very, very good. I think Zeitler, he didn't play as much as Fleming did, but I think Zeitler played just an absolute lights-out game. Nick Gates has been getting better gradually, so I don't think that has any connection to Will Hernandez exactly. I think he was just playing. He's been getting better and better. What I will say is when you look at Andrew Thomas, there has to be a connection there, man. You can't say that he shut down Jason Pierre-Paul for the most part, and that Will Hernandez not being there didn't play a part. You know what I mean? Like, Jason Pierre-Paul is one of the best passers in the NFL right now. He's a veteran of over a decade, and he knows how to expose weaknesses, and he just didn't do it against Andrew Thomas. There has to be some correlation to Shane Lemieux playing just a better game or something with the chemistry. I don't know.
Yeah, and I also want to throw this out here. We've seen small sample sizes of Matt Parrott 3 times now, right? I think we've seen it 3 times. We've seen him get into the lineup and play small sample sizes. Each sample size has been, each sample has been delicious. Each sample has tasted great. It's been really good. He's played well in every small sample size. When will he finally get his opportunity as the full-time? Just no more small sample sizes. Give us the full meal. Let him start a full game. It's got to be time, right? If this is 3 times that this has happened. Against Washington, he played 26 total snaps. He had an 89.7 grade with an elite 93.4 run blocking grade. I don't think he let up any pressures in that game either. And then in week 8, he also played 24 snaps. We just mentioned 0 pressures. So when are we going to see him in the starting role for at least a game? Let him play as a starter.
I agree. He should be.
It's time. It is time. And I was the guy who was saying, ease Matt Parrott in, don't rush him, don't hurt his development. It's time. The dude's proven. He's ready. You know what I mean? He's ready. Let's put him in.
I agree with you. I think that they should be starting him ASAP. This line, in my opinion, you start Shane Lemieux over Will Hernandez right now because you want to get film on Shane Lemieux. Let him develop. Maybe Will Hernandez is the future. Maybe he's not at the position, but at least split the reps. Get Shane Lemieux some series in the future. But I'm actually watching this play on replay right now. The Wayne Gallman touchdown towards the end of the game. Andrew Thomas, man, he secures this block on the left side. You just see his right hand come swinging around, just latches onto the defender's right shoulder, and he just completely seals that edge for Wayne Gallman to just power through. And Shane Lemieux does a good job pushing his guy at the line of scrimmage as well. But seeing those two guys together and the power that they actually had, I really, really want to see more of Thomas and Lemieux. I kind of like those two guys right there. I don't want to see. I don't want to see Will Hernandez, starting every snap. I want to see Lemieux getting some series in the future.
Yeah, and I want to throw this statistic out here that I have just found. 312 pass blocking snaps this season for Cam Fleming, 24 pressures. There's been 40 pass blocking snaps for Matt Parrott and only 2 pressures. I feel like the 40-2 is a much more impressive number in terms of ratio and percentage. He's only played 73 total snaps, though. That number just has to go up, sooner or later. We got to get Matt Parrott on the field more. He's clearly progressing, too. He's gotten better since the start of the season. So, and I am going to continue to pat myself on the back for this because this was my guy. This was my number 1 guy leading up to the draft who I wanted, and we got him. And I think that
I remember when I told you.
So far been...
I remember I texted you. I was like, "Oh, we got Matt Parrott." He was like, "No way!"
I thought you were joking, dude. I literally couldn't believe it. And I posted a mock draft that day with the 99th pick. I selected Matt Parrott in my mock draft, and I was just, and it's funny. I think I've told this story before, but my mom is a huge Giants fan as well. It was that morning. I was like, "Yeah, there's this tackle out of UConn, whose name is Matt Parrott that I really hope they draft in the 3rd round." And she was like, UConn? And I'm like, yeah, I know, it's UConn. Not a lot of football players come out of UConn, but I think this guy's really good, and if they develop him, he could be a good player. So hopefully they draft him. And then they did, and I go out there and I'm like, Mom, they drafted that guy from UConn. She was like, the guy you were talking about this morning? I'm like, yeah. So he is my guy. I have a good story that I can attach to him in my head. Yeah. And I just,
tell him
it's one of those special things. Yeah, I'll tell him about it one day. I can't wait for him to be a starter on this line. I think it's inevitable at this point. It's got to happen as soon as possible.
I agree. You know what the best part about him so far is? We've seen him play well at left and right tackle. It hasn't just been in one position. He can do both. Say Andrew Thomas missed any time, knock on wood. Parrott could swing over to left tackle, and I would feel very confident that he would hold it down for us. That is the difference between Eric Flowers and a good player. Eric Flowers was stuck at left tackle. Now he's playing left guard. But you look at a player like Parrott who can play both left and right tackle, and you're like, okay, this guy is even more valuable than just a solo position player that he's stuck at one spot and they don't know where else he could play. He can do multiple things.
Yeah, man. I mean, he played really well at left tackle against, I believe, Washington it was, and then he's played really well at right tackle against Tampa Bay and any other time he's been in. So, and I think that when you look at him, there was a lack of strength in college, and that was concerning because it's UConn, and if he's not strong enough there, would he be strong enough in the league? But that hasn't shown up.
Right.
It has not shown up. So he must have worked on that. He must have really hit the bench press in the offseason. And he definitely looks like he looks like the
He's a
same
big
player,
guy.
but better.
Huge
He
guy.
looks better than he did in college. Like, he's clearly made progress, and it's exciting because, the number one thing that I saw on his tape that I liked was his feet, his footwork, his active feet. He was very
So
agile.
fast.
And that is one of, like, the main things that you
His
need
arms,
to
too.
succeed in the
So
NFL.
long.
Yeah, his arms. He had the longest arms at the combine. He's, like, literally got tree trunks on his
Freak.
arms. It is insane. He looks like Elastigirl from The Incredibles with how long his arms
Yeah.
are, or Mr. Fantastic. So
Mr. Fantastic.
he has that, and then he has, like, that footwork that was just perfect. So all he had to do was just combine that with some upper body strength, and it seems like he's done that. And I'm really confident in Matt Parrott as a starter, and I think that for the rest of the season, that's who should be starting at right tackle, without a doubt in my mind.
I agree, and I hope you guys feel the same way we do about a bunch of these different players. Obviously, we have safety Xavier McKinney hopefully coming back in a couple of weeks. I think minimum week 12.
And I want to throw out there that Jabril Peppers, I think that's one of the best games I've seen him
Big
play in
game.
coverage in a long time. He was really good in man coverage last night. It showed up multiple times, so I'm pretty excited by that because I know he's
what I
another
think?
guy that was kind of on the trade block. So
I will say that this team looked like they were confident last night. They had something to prove, and they competed more
Joe
than
Judge effect.
anyone thought that they will. I will say Joe Judge is really hammering down the discipline here. This team is close to turning that edge. They just need a few key players to really eradicate some problems. Cough, cough, Daniel Jones. But what I will say is that with confidence, a team like that with confidence, I think is capable of surprising some people. I think they are much better than their record says they are. And Jabril Pepper said it after the game. He said, we might have lost, but we are not as bad as our record says. We are very close to being a good team, and we are trending in the right direction. We are not the Jets, essentially, is what he was saying.
yeah, I mean they've lost like 5 games by a total of 10 points or something.
Yeah,
That's nuts. That is like super unfortunate. You get one break in each of those games, and we've only lost 2 games. You know what I mean? Like, it's just one or two breaks in each of those games. The Giants haven't been able to capitalize on those breaks, whether it be for this reason or that reason.
I mean,
and eventually they're going to have to. Otherwise, the quarterback conversations will continue.
Yeah. I mean, they've lost. Let me see. Their last 3 losses have been by a combined 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 points. 3 points to Dallas, 1 point to the Eagles, and 2 points to the Buccaneers.
Right.
Sorry, 6 points. 6-point difference in 3 losses. Tell me that this team isn't very close to turning that corner. They're getting better, by the way, as the season goes on. We're seeing a better team every single week. Honestly, I think that this team next year, if we add a few key pieces, and I think they'll get the job done, at least I hope so, this could be a totally different team in terms of what their expectations are.
My fear is just, what if they get those key pieces and they don't turn it around, and then you say, but they hold on to Daniel Jones, and you say, okay, that was the problem then, that's my fear. That's why these last 8 weeks of the season, we absolutely have to see Daniel Jones prove himself or bottom out. It's got to be one of the two. I don't want any questions going into the offseason. If he bottoms out, we know what we're doing in the first round. If he proves himself somehow, we know that we don't have to panic and draft another quarterback. So
and think about that,
we just got to know by the end
if
of the season.
If he pans out, I'm gonna leave everything with this before we head off. If he pans out and he proves to us that we can trust him, or he has some momentum and we know what he's capable of doing, that is a huge bonus for the Giants, because they can take that pick. They don't have to get another quarterback now. They can go out, get Micah Parsons, get Chase, Jamar Chase, get Penei Sewell. I don't think they will, but they could get Jamar Chase. They could trade back and acquire more picks. You don't understand how valuable that is if Daniel Jones is our guy. If we should be praying to the football gods and motivating Daniel Jones as much as we possibly can, because if he is our guy, the Giants are in very good shape next year to get a serious playmaker on either side of the ball and move forward into the season with hella confidence that they're going to compete against any team.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. If you have a quarterback that you believe in on a young rookie deal, it is so easy to build a roster around the quarterback on a rookie contract. That is the formula for success. That's how, that's how the Chiefs did it. That's how the Chiefs got their success. That's how the Rams made it to the Super Bowl. They built around Goff when he was on that, rookie contract, and they were able to sign Aaron Donald, Marcus Peters and all these stars in one offseason and turn the whole team around. So, you know, that's the way to do it. And if Daniel Jones is the guy, the Giants set themselves up in good shape. And if he's not the guy, you want to get that guy in there as soon as possible, because while these other players are on the rise, they're on the rise, meaning they're going to have to get contracts soon too. So, you know, you have a small window.
Yeah.
You got a small window, and you want to hit right in the middle of that window, and
it's do or die.
That's very dependent on the quarterback. So next year really is, it's do or die, because the year after that you're going to be paying Saquon Barkley an absurd amount of money, and then your salary cap is shrinking, and gets tough.
That's a whole other discussion. I don't want to even.
That's a whole other discussion, but
I don't even get me started.
Saquon was just a name to throw out there, but I'm saying that you're going to have to start paying players next year. Is my point.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're 100% right. And there's a bunch of guys like Lorenzo Carter. You got to make decisions on. Do you want to extend them? Do you let them walk? You probably want to extend them to some point, right? To some extent, you want to give them a contract. You just don't know how big it's going to be, but. Honestly, the Giants aren't in a terrible place when it comes to guys coming of contract age. I mean, of course, you have Saquon, but then you really only have like Lorenzo Carter, Jabril Peppers. These guys aren't going to be making an insane amount of money. It's really Saquon and then DJ.
That's an indictment on Dave Gettleman's draft classes.
That's true. That's a very, very valid point.
Yes,
the free agents,
I would hope we had more players to pay, more stud players that we needed to pay, but we don't, and that is ultimately
it's the free agents, by
team.
the way, that have really picked this team up.
Yep.
They have been the saving grace for Dave Gettleman, and I think that Joe Judge had a big say, and Patrick Graham. It's all about relationships, like Matt said, all about relationships, all about who's going to work in what scheme, and I think Patrick Graham got his guys. I think he wanted Martinez. I think he wanted James Bradbury. He wanted Kyler Fackrell, and he got him, and look what he's done with them. It's clear to me that he had a very big influence on who he wanted on this team, and Dave Gettleman wasn't just trying to piece stuff together for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm. I think Patrick Graham built that defense and handpicked those players to build the defense, and I think he's done a phenomenal job with it. Yeah. I mean, I think we could have pieced a couple more players into a couple spots, and we'd be an even better team. But cornerback too is like the
one step at a time.
One step at a time. Hopefully,
they also thought they'd have McKinney.
That's another position you want to throw out there for the first round next year, because we mentioned tackle and we mentioned quarterback, we mentioned receiver. Cornerback is. There's
a good number two.
There's bound to be at least one guy. Yeah, there's bound to be at least one guy who comes through the draft. I think Patrick Surtain out of Alabama. That's a good name to throw out there to consider. I hate that we're talking about the draft in week 9, but it's almost a tradition now.
It's not a bad thing though. But here's the thing. Here's the difference. Is like we're talking about the draft right now, not because we're like, oh, this team freaking sucks. It's like. We are like 1 or 2 players away from being better than what we are right now. It's like we're looking to the positive future, not the we need to rebuild and scrap the whole thing. We're not that far off.
Right. Usually we're having this conversation and saying we got to kill this draft because we need to plug in all these holes. And to some extent, yeah. But mainly it's like we do feel like we just need to draft 1 or 2 more really good players and then make a couple more clutch signings. And we should be a competitive team after that. That's how I feel, at least. So I don't think we're that far off. Over the past couple of weeks, I've felt more confident that we're closer to being good than I have in the past 2 years. So, I do feel like we might be turning a corner somewhat soon.
Kyler Fackrell is the perfect free agent tender candidate. He is literally like Marcus Golden from last year. He's going to seek a multi-year deal, and I guarantee
I want them to give a multi-year deal. He's not going to get like $10 million a year, and he knows
that's what I'm saying.
But I'm down to give him a 3-year contract extension. Like, I like him. I think he contributes a lot. He's solid, and even when you get a guy who's better, you put him in as a depth piece, and he is perfect in that role. And I also want to throw out there, and I should link this in the description if I remember. Cam Brown and Carter Coughlin combined on a sack last night, and I did a film breakdown on Cam Brown and Carter Coughlin combined because I did it in one video. So go check that out because they could get an increased role in these coming weeks, especially towards the end of the season, and they're pretty solid players. I liked what I saw on the film from them, so go check that out if you haven't seen that on the YouTube already.
Absolutely. Well, we're at the hour and 4-minute mark, so I think it's time to head off and let you guys think about all the stuff that you've just consumed and this knowledge and information. And obviously, you know where to find us on Twitter. We love to talk with you guys and hear your opinions and get feedback. and just have fun with this team and talk about the future, talk about the present. We're all on the same side here, so we all want the same thing as the Giants to win. And I think we're getting closer to that. I think Joe Judge is the guy, and I want to appreciate thank everyone for sticking with us and really being great fans and great part of this community. So we appreciate you guys very much. And Anthony, I'll give you the final words.
Yeah, I just want to, agree with him. Thank you guys. And definitely come follow us on Twitter because, it is a lot more fun and a lot more engaging during those games to be engaging with you guys. And as frustrated and as depressed as I was last night, I did still find enjoyment in responding to the tweets and, to the fans who are familiar with our work and, talking with Giants Nation. That's always fun to do. And last thing I'll say is definitely tune in this week when we have our All-22 breakdown with Matt G. He is an offensive line coach. You guys are going to learn a lot from that. I expect to learn a lot from that.
Me
that
too.
Should be fun, and I'm excited to break down Shane Lemieux and the rest of the hog mollies on the Giants O-line after a pretty promising week in Week 8. So stay tuned for that and have a good one. We'll see you in the next one.